Hello everyone, this is Tyler here. It is April 3rd, it's Sunday, and hopefully everyone's having a good weekend so far. I sure am. A quick topic here, and that is why Russian-speaking Estonians are not true Russians. I've lived in both Russia and Estonia, and I've met many people in both countries. There's great people, honestly, in both places. Just mind you, I don't speak in spite. I don't at all speak in a negative connotation here, but it is important people understand this. I meet many Estonians here from Estonian speaking backgrounds that will tell me that they're quite different than Russian speaking Estonians. And the funny thing is that I meet Russian speaking Estonians and they tell me the same thing about Estonian speakers. It's really interesting, kind of the dichotomy here. So these two groups are not as different as they claim to be. I say that because I've been in Russia, I've lived there, and I see differences, honestly, in these two groups of people. This is my take on it, and this is why I say this. Let's first consider that Estonian has a very egalitarian and even matriarchal structure in many respects. If we look at the government and corporate structures, many women have higher seats of power in this country, which is not so in Russia. In Russia, on the higher institutional corporate government level, they do not have the same mentality in this country, and you would never, at least in my lifetime, I don't think we would ever see a Russian president that was a woman. Whereas in Estonia, they very much have many women that are in power, and this is also important to understand that who are putting these women in power? It's the people. The people elect government officials, they elect corporate leaders, and it's important to understand that 45 to 50% of Estonians speak Russian as a first or second language. Russian influence has a huge influence in this country, and I would say culture. This means that many of these people putting these people into power are from Russian-speaking backgrounds. Now, would this happen in Russia? Probably not. And so this is important to understand. The second thing is, let's look at literature. Many of the most famous authors came from Russia. We look at Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Solzhenitsyn, all these guys, they all were from Russia. These are some of the most well-regarded authors to this day in the world. Most Russian people have read these famous authors. Now, in Estonia, it's very common for me to meet Russian-speaking Estonians who don't even know who these authors are. And even like Dostoevsky, I've met at least a few younger Russian-speaking Estonians, they didn't know who Dostoevsky was. It's an interesting detail because these are very pivotal people in Russian literature. The next thing is dating and relationships. This is that aspect, I think, that I see a lot of similarities with both Estonian and Russian-speaking Estonians, more so than I see over in Russia. The mindset towards the dating and relationships is obviously built on the culture and how the people look at this matter. I've known friends and family that have lived for some time in Estonia and who are married or have been in relationships with Estonians, both Russian and Estonian speaking Estonians. They've actually expressed similarities in these two groups. They don't see the amount of differences that people often perceive. Now, if you went over to Russia, it would be more noticeable. My brother, for example, has lived in both countries. He has dated women in both places, and in Estonia, both Russian and Estonian speaking Estonians, and has told me that there is not a lot of differences. And keep in mind, my brother has dated many women from all over the world. The next area is the perception towards foreign people. What I mean is that the mindset toward foreign people in Russia is a very international, it's a very globalized viewpoint. People don't understand this about Russians. They're very globally minded, much more so than they're portrayed in the media. And for this reason, it's a very good country for people from other places to date because women are very open. Now, in Estonia, not so much, honestly. And there are, of course, Russian-speaking Estonians that are open-minded towards this possibility, but more often I don't see this And from people I've spoken to, there's not as much of the desire there. Also, the amount of respect and punctuality shown towards foreign guys. What I mean by this is that there's a lot of consistency while dating in Russia often. Here in Estonia, it's not as much so, and it really doesn't make a difference if it's Estonian or Russian speaking Estonian. It's kind of similar, honestly, the mindset towards this. It kind of takes more of a backseat, we'll say, than if you're in Russia, where relationships are probably more prioritized. The next and maybe the most important aspect is the language. Most Russians in Russia prefer speaking Russian. And there are some that, of course, that know English, but not nearly as prolific as in Estonia, where most people know English as a second language. If they don't, they're probably over the age of 60. In Russia, it's very common to this day for people even over the age of 30 not to know very much English. And this isn't a bad thing, but what I found is that in Russia, even if you could just speak a little Russian, they would still prefer speaking in Russian. Whereas in Estonia, if you spoke a little Russian, most likely the person would probably prefer to speak to you in English. And the mindset to understand is that the Russians see themselves kind of as their own sphere of influence, kind of like the US is a sphere of influence in the West, and English is the most dominant language. The same thing in Russia. Russian is the center point here amongst the people. This is my perspective, and I appreciate if I get some feedback. Tell me what you guys think. Thank you.